Good evening, sir. How are you?
Good evening. I'm absolutely shattered, if I'm honest, after an incredibly busy weekend, but an enjoyable one nonetheless.
Yeah, you were hosting.
We were hosting. We had a lot of people, lots of old friends over to camp in our little field, and a good time was had by all.
And I know I joke about this, but my natural instinctive follow-up question there is, and you had good weather for it as well.
We had spectacular weather for it. Yeah, absolutely.
Not
It
too
was
hot.
hot enough to feel like you could make the most of it, but not so hot that you felt you
You couldn't
were
move.
restricted in any way. No, it was very,
Yeah.
very good.
Brilliant. Okay, I'm going to try and promise people not to mention the weather next time. Yeah, I'm not sure how successful that will be, though. So, look, we had an interesting game on Saturday evening, home to
Well,
Fulham.
this is it. Normally, you start by asking me sort of my views, but I feel like I should sort of flip it and maybe go, well, welcome to the North Bank podcast. We're going to go through the events on Saturday, and I'd like you to start off by telling me what you thought about things before the game even kicked off. What was the atmosphere like, and what did you make of the team news? Because we had our first bit of rotation.
Well, yeah, interesting to take up from something you said about the Bournemouth game, that it was one of those games where you spent more time or less time watching the actual football and more time participating as a fan on the terraces with the chanting and so on. Now, it wasn't quite like that, but the atmosphere obviously is building this season. That's what winning games will do for you, I guess. But I messaged you at about 50 minutes before kickoff. I sent you a little video in the North Bank concourse. I've never heard anything like it. Right. There were chanting from an hour before kickoff, like home to Fulham. I maybe anticipate something like that if it's a Spurs game or a big Champions League game.
Wasn't it the Spurs game last season?
Yes, yeah.
It was quite live. It really was quite lively beforehand. Yeah.
Yeah. So I spent half an hour just standing there, listening to, joining these chants. This atmosphere was just like hair standing on the back, up at the back of your neck. It's like it was spine tingling. Brilliant. And I'm like, this is special. It's like, this is like, we better win this game. I was, kind of quite moved by that. I thought this is brilliant. We had already heard the team news. Obviously, there's a worry. Partey and Zinchenko. It's really weird, but Partey is the one player for whom we don't have a like-for-like replacement or an adequate replacement. I think that's fair for what he does for the team. So that was always going to be interesting. But how big an impact has Zinchenko made that Tierney has become, for what Zinchenko, it's a bit harsh on Tierney, but for what Zinchenko's asked to do in the team, Tierney is, well, it's not his game, so it's a bit unfair. And again, defensively, if we're playing against Liverpool or Man City, I'd want Tierney, in my back line first. I think that Zinchenko could be found out a little bit when put under pressure defensively, but for everything else, you could see that we really I say we struggled. We actually created an awful lot of chances, even like at half time, although we hadn't played brilliantly in the opposition box. We had 9 chances but only 1 on target. I think that was a bit of an issue. But so, Tierney and Elneny, I thought, flick a coin. Elneny did really well at the back end of last season. Lokonga could have come in, home to Fulham. I would have maybe gone for a Lokonga first, but Elneny did what was asked of him. Elneny played an Elneny game. I think that's he did nothing wrong. We didn't dominate midfield in the first half. We didn't dominate the ball in the first half. as much as we could possibly have done with Partey there. I don't know. We weren't as quick going forward, like that, linking that to, perhaps. I don't know. But you know, with the atmosphere that was bouncing in the concourse, and got to the took my seat with about 15 minutes before kickoff. Atmosphere was great. We were like, yeah, okay, well, this'll test us. It's the first time enforced changes. Apparently, they both dropped out injured on the Friday in the Friday training session, so we didn't have much time to kind of adapt an alternative plan. But the atmosphere, and Gunnerblog tweeted before the game that he's never experienced the atmosphere that kind of electric that far before kickoff for a game against Fulham. You know, it's just the context for it. He even tweeted that, which I'd already like. I sent that same clip I sent to you. I sent to several others as well, because I was just like, you have to see this. Yeah. This is unusual. This is not typical. And then, like, I've heard, quoting Gunnerblog again, at the end of the game, he said that was the best atmosphere he's experienced at the Emirates. And I walked away from the game thinking, I genuinely not wanting to kind of, I don't know, get too going. I was thinking, have I experienced an atmosphere as good as that? Period. Like it was. I thought, of course, I must have
at the Emirates.
No. Period. And I thought I must have. I thought because this is in the moment. I was still feeling that you've and the scoring a winner with a few minutes to go. Yeah. The first time in like several years we've gone a goal down in the second half and actually won the game. There were lots of. It was our first proper test of the season. Fulham are a good side. They didn't offer much, but they sat back and they're very physical. It's not how you imagine a Fulham side. And seeing Mitrovic in person, live, he is an absolute beast. Like, it's, oh my God. A couple of Arsenal players literally bounced off him. Now, and we're not a lightweight side anymore either. We've got a lot of physicality. Really. We've got a lot of physicality about us. I mean, if you think about the back line that played White, Saliba, Gabriel and Tierney, and in front of them you've got Xhaka and El Neni. Well, that's a team full of 6-footers there, Tierney aside, but Tierney's physical as well. So we're actually, and we stood up to any physical challenge completely. We did. We didn't wilt under that at all. But the noise. I mean, there were times when I was thinking I just went quiet because I just had to soak up. I was reminded of the FA Cup final, like '98. Overmars scored at Wembley, and the noise was just incredible, and it was similar to that. And I'm thinking, it's the fourth game of the season, home to Fulham. It's like, what is this? This is brilliant. Like this is what the Emirates has to become. And the going a goal down, the way we went a goal down, very similar to the Saliba own goal, although potentially more damaging because it knocked us a goal back. And my first initial response was, we're not going to score 2 goals. Because of the way the game had been played up to that point, I was thinking, we're not going to score 2 goals. So I was really worried. But you wouldn't know, there was none of that in the stadium, not for a second. Like, the Arsenal fans were chanting and singing whilst the Fulham players were still celebrating the goal in front of their fans. I was like, wow, this is not, where's this toxicity gone? Where's the moaning and groaning gone? It's just evaporated. It's not there. How much happier does that make me feel? Like
going on to win as well.
Well, and Ramsdale, I just saw an interview Ramsdale did with Ian Wright and Kelly Dalglish, or Kelly Coates. I don't know what the program was, but I've just seen it. Like, someone tweeted it, and I watched it. And Ramsdale said that's the loudest he's had this since in his time at Arsenal. That's the loudest the stadium's been. And he said it's the players feel it.
Good.
And I love these dinosaurs getting worked up. Richard Keys, I mean,
well, let's come to Richard Keys, because, and I want you to take me through any specifics you said about the worrying that we weren't going to score 2 goals having gone behind. So what did you see in the first half? Because I was doing my first ever barbecue ever. You know, I feel like I'm a proper man now. It was for about 30 people as well, including fussy children.
That's
So
pressure.
it was all good. But I did have my phone on the barbecue at the side. I made sure the barbecue was close enough to the house for the Wi-Fi. But obviously, I'm watching the feed. I'm seeing bits and bobs. I saw that we were kind of on top.
Yeah.
But yeah, not much was.
There
really
were like a couple of half chances. Xhaka had a right foot volley he put wide. Saka cut inside, and I think should have done better. It was a nice, great move, team move. He did
Was
really
that
well.
The one-on-one with Leno.
Yeah. Where
I've watched the highlights since.
Yeah, he cut inside left foot as well, and I thought he could have done better with that. And the slightly concerning thing about Saka, and I'll say slightly because he offered an awful lot more in the game, is that he hasn't actually scored from open play for 14 games now. That's quite a long time. He does still occupy at least 2 of the opposition at all times.
And there's assists in there. And
Yeah. No, so he was. I was surprised he wasn't one of the ones substituted. They kept him on. Ødegaard came off. But actually, the real transformation, fans aside, was a real kind of bold move, a smart move from Arteta. He hooked Tierney straight after the goal and brought Eddie Nketiah on. So he had half an hour. And Nketiah made all the difference. Direct running, energy, all of a sudden we had this incision. Like he should have scored. He had about 3 chances where there weren't like gilt-edged misses, but he could have tucked one of them away. So that was the turning point in terms of the kind of tempo, and the crowd felt it. But there is one player, and I've banged on about this guy for a while, and the way I describe him is, I have said to you many times previously that he is the one player that we have who I feel would have fit seamlessly into a Wenger invincible team, and that's Ødegaard. And my God, in the first half as well, some of his passes were, I'm like...
There's a pass on the highlights in the first half.
Yes. Yeah.
It's a diagonal ball to someone at the far end of the penalty box.
Oh, yeah. No, that led to the Xhaka chance. Right. Yeah. Jesus, it wasn't the best layoff from Jesus for Xhaka. But yeah, there's another ball.
Take it high, didn't he?
Yeah, there's another ball in the first half where he's slightly more central and a bit deeper. He's in our own half. It wasn't on Match of the Day. I did check. And in the ground, we all thought he was going to do a similar diagonal pass to the far left. But he didn't. He did the complete opposite. He did a diagonal pass to the right for Saka. And it was perfect. And the stadium, nobody in the stadium saw the pass until he played it. And I'm like... Okay. And that was in the first half. Second half, the guy was head and shoulders above. He was sublime. I mean, I saw someone tweet a poll shortly after the game, like Arsenal's man of the match. And the 3 options were Ødegaard, or Ødegaard. And that kind of summed it up. The guy, and he got man of the match, I believe. But when you're at the game, you never know how a player's performance is perceived through the telly. But I know he got man of the match and so on. He took the shot that was deflected and got us back into the game 9 minutes after Fulham scored. And he was, you wouldn't have seen it on the TV, but he was geeing the North Bank up. We're quite a few succession of corners in about 7 or 8 minutes. And he was geeing up the North Bank. Not that we needed it, but the noise when he did it, the noise was up another level. And it's like, and we scored from one of the corners that he, and in one point I'd make about their corners as well. Martinelli, who has been brilliant from the dead ball, from the corners this season so far, he took all the corners from that side, and they were all awful. So I thought, but then someone mentioned that actually it was a slightly lofty. Normally his corners are more flat; they have more pace on them. Whereas he was getting a lot more height into these corners, and he was basically dropping them on top of Leno.
Yeah,
and then I thought, well, hang on a minute. This guy said, but don't you think that's a deliberate tactic? Because I was complaining about the corners not being as, and I said, yeah, do you know, you're right, because Leno, not the most commanding of goalkeepers, fantastic shot stopper, but. And that's what that was a tactic. So actually, he was doing what he.
Goal.
Yeah, it absolutely worked a treat. And the noise. I mean, the goal and the celebration was right in front of where we sit, and the noise was just like takeoff. And I didn't realise until I got home and saw the Zinchenko. One of the stewards, if you see her. She thought Zinchenko was a pitch invader. Did he have his knee in a brace as well, or a little thing? And he was.
I didn't see that. You just saw his black T-shirt on all the coverage I've seen.
Yeah. He sprinted down the touchline. Someone videoed him during the whole game from about 5 rows behind the dugout, and he couldn't sit down. He couldn't sit still. He was like a jack in the box. And I think he's a fan. Yeah. We've seen him in the Arsenal kit as a kid, and I think he's a proper fan. Like I'd love to sit down and chat to him about his childhood and who he did support and how much he was an Arsenal supporter. But he's acting everything he's doing like it's instinctive. It's not planned. There's nothing. What's the word? Deliberate
to it.
Yeah, it's completely instinctive, everything he's doing. Like he was up and down, and like the Arsenal women's, that is it Leah Williamson, and that they were. I noticed that the camera was on them a few times, and they were like, and they're Arsenal fans. They're Arsenal fans and players, but they're Arsenal fans. And you can see that, and I just think having that energy in the team from Zinchenko, that his celebration when the penalty decision against Leicester was overturned.
Yeah,
like
he's garnering this reputation, and like I said, he could become a cult hero.
I think he is. I think he's there.
There's the reaction to Saliba's goal, and now the celebration with Gabriel's winner.
Yeah, he's forget about. You think he will develop a cult? He's there. It helps. He's also got that song as well. Which didn't come out. They didn't sing it.
Really?
No, it was weird. They did in the concourse underneath, but not during the game, I guess, which is quite good actually, because you support the players on the pitch. As well. I think that's decent enough. But yeah, I mean, 86th minute VAR.
So, couple of incidents I was going to say in the second half. You've already sort of said that even with Gabriel's mistake, the crowd never really.
No, not for us. No, nothing.
Yeah.
No.
So that's good. And I think the players, all the post-match comments are all about, actually, we know there's going to be setbacks, but it's about how you respond to them and all those sorts of things. So you said also Odegaard, it got a deflection. But again, you've already alluded to the dinosaur, Richard Keys, and there are conflicting reports. There are some reports you read where it's like, Arsenal were lucky because of the deflection and because of the VAR decisions, which could have gone another way. And then there's other people you read who are saying, but you make your own luck. Odegaard's ran the game really well. He's the man of the match. He's taken the shot. He's forced it. And the VAR decision, actually, I think more people have said that there's nothing wrong.
There's nothing. Well, I couldn't see anything there.
To me, I don't think there was a foul on Leno because Saliba doesn't move in any direction at all, and I think the ball hits him rather than him hitting the ball. And I thought that rule was changed to reflect that. So, no, it's a good goal.
Yeah, when we saw it again, I didn't see anything wrong with it. But I must admit, I did celebrate it like it was going to stand for that minute. But then,
that late on in the game.
yeah. But then there was, when the celebration died down a fraction, I was one of the first ones to stop and think it's a goalmouth scramble. You're thinking there could be anything wrong with that, and then it flashed up VAR possible handball, and you're like, oh no, it's like, because I'm not sure we'd have scored again.
My prediction would have been on then.
I was really cursing you at various points during that. Now the guy to my left, who has for the last 10 years put a bet on Arsenal to win the game 2-1, and it rarely comes off. I was praying he was going home a winner with that bet, especially from the moment Fulham scored. But yeah, it was just like, it was a test. Fulham are no pushover. No. Fulham won't do a Bournemouth at Liverpool. They're a much more physical side than I did, and they were unbeaten. That's their first defeat in 4. They drew with Liverpool 2-2 and took the lead twice in that game. I think they go to Spurs next weekend, so that will be interesting. On
them, because Spurs v Forest yesterday. Again, I didn't watch it all, but it wasn't a convincing one again from Spurs, particularly.
Is that a worry, or is that?
Yeah, that's the thing. You don't know, do you? Because once other players do kick on, Son's had the quietest start to the season I can remember.
Yeah.
If he kicks on again, he's a Golden Boot winner last year. So was Salah, and they both had kind of okay starts.
What odds would you have got on 9 goals for Liverpool and Salah not getting on the score sheet?
Oh, well, again, watching the highlights, it's unreal. He should have had a hat-trick as well. Absolutely crazy.
So Spurs like not playing well, but they're 10 points from 4 games.
Well, let's go to the after the match incidents then. I assume it was euphoric at the ground, but there are reporters out there. Richard Keys is the one we've mentioned, who said maybe we shouldn't be celebrating that much because it's only Fulham at home.
I saw him today double down to an extent where he made a distinction between the fans and the players this time. But what I find interesting is that there are, in my sphere, there are fans from every other club supporting Arsenal fans, defending the right to celebrate.
Yeah.
It's look at the way Spurs celebrated scoring the second goal against Forest.
Yeah.
In the crowds, we just scored a late winner in a game in which we hadn't played as efficiently or smoothly or kind of whatever as we had done in the 3 previous games. We'd gone behind to a terrible mistake from Gabriel at the back. It was there, it's like, God's sake, there's enough crap going on in the world. Taking that, look, he's doing it because he knows Arsenal fans are the most mobile on social media, but I suspect it's backfired on him a little bit because it's not just Arsenal fans now, and he's coming out really poorly. Andy Gray, who I always loved as a co-commentator in the early days of Sky, just because of the passion and energy in his voice and commentary as well. He disagreed with him to begin with, but he kind of backed down a little bit towards the end, but then he did agree with him today in the follow-up, and I think Richard Keys has begged him to come on side with him. And then, of course, I heard on Talk Sport that Graham Souness and Simon Jordan both agreed as well. With Richard Keys, and I thought, well, there you go. It's like
it's the same profile of person, isn't it?
Yes, it's.
I think what annoys me most about it is the hypocrisy of it, because, you know, Keys is someone who's made a career and probably earned, you know, a significant amount of coin from Sky because it's the best league in the world where anyone can beat anyone. So to then turn around and go, oh, but it's Arsenal against Fulham. Of course, Arsenal should beat Fulham. And Arsenal should be arrogant and superior enough to go to fob it off as though it's nothing. Well, no, you can't have both. Every game in the Premier League is difficult. That's why we love it. That's why it's a great league in the world. And so, therefore, every win should be celebrated and enjoyed.
And Liverpool didn't beat Fulham.
No, and Liverpool had a whale of a time because they just lost the week before to Man United, who everyone had written off. Yeah. Because Man United had lost to Brentford, who got promoted only last season. You can follow this chain around.
Yeah,
and they just don't see what they're saying, like you say.
And has Richard Keys ever paid a penny to watch a football match as an adult? Probably not. Yeah. So he's
still earning money from the Premier League now because he's just presenting the Middle Eastern coverage of it. So
he was sacked from Sky Sports for being a dinosaur, misogynistic views, aired. Yeah. Without his awareness, thought the mic was off. So what was he like the whole time anyway? Can you imagine being female and having to work with him and people like him who wouldn't challenge him or question him or take him to hold him to account over his comments? And everyone knows, and I'm not going to be more personal than that, but I wasn't aware of his personal life story in recent years, but I am now, and sounds like an absolutely wonderful, upstanding, moral individual, and I'll leave it at that.
Let's not get ourselves into trouble.
No, well, I've just been positive. I've eulogised about the man, you know.
Okay, then. So great win, comeback win, very rare, especially conceding in the second half. What do we do next for Villa?
Right. Well, I haven't the medical update. Well, all I've heard about the medical update is that they both were precautionary. Zinchenko's was a knock, and Partey's was a muscle, a tightness of the muscle. So I'm thinking that Partey will not play against Villa. And if there's a fighting chance of him being available for Sunday, then he absolutely should not play against Villa.
I was just thinking it. I think team selection is almost not that you should ever look. You know, every game matters and every game is important. But we're at home. Villa are very odd at the minute. They're in poor form and struggling to get going. And we managed to show resolve and steel, you know, against Fulham, who were in better form and going to be more probably harder to beat than you might imagine Villa would be.
Yeah, and we weren't complacent against Fulham. I was worried beforehand that complacency would kick in. We definitely weren't complacent because we started fast and the control of the ball in the middle of the park, we were on it. It wasn't an off, like last season we had off days where we were appalling. We were awful. It was not like that at all. Fulham were good. You know, it was Fulham's kind of impressive setup and execution of their plan and so on that prevented us rather than our complaint. I am worried about complacency ahead of Villa because of Villa's form. And I'm worried about Villa because they're the next game, and I worry about whoever we're playing the next game.
Here's a comparison then. So Fulham won the championship and got promoted. If you take the equivalent club from the year before, that would have been Norwich, I guess.
Yeah.
I think. And we played Norwich in the kind of mid-autumn. It was around September time.
Yeah.
And we only beat Norwich 1-0. Yeah. And I'd argue Fulham are a better team than Norwich are at this level, going on the way they've performed so far. And we didn't have any of the momentum or positivity or attitude. And we didn't have some of the players. You know, we didn't have Gabriel Jesus. And so I think we're in a much better position to absorb that. And the fact that we dealt with Fulham in the way that we did, you know, we should look at the Villa game and think, action. Well, I'm hoping the players won't be complacent is what I'm sort of trying to think about. We shouldn't be looking at a team like Fulham as being a pushover, because we only beat Norwich 1-0 last year, but we don't have any of the momentum. And I'm really hoping the players have got that taste for it now.
Yeah,
and 4 wins out of 4. They should be looking at the Villa game and not thinking, oh, well, we're in good form and they're not in good form. They should be thinking, right, we want to do everything we can to make it 5-5.
Yeah, and we should start fast. We should go at them straight away, be relentless, put them under pressure from the beginning. Our press is relentless. It's really good. We don't let opposition teams settle at all. Now, sustaining that, we've got 9 games in October, I think, a game every 3 days. I know every club does, and we'll talk about the transfer window in a minute. We're already 2 men down if you think about it. Two of our starting 11 have dropped out. So I would look. Home game against Villa, away to United. Right, I want my stronger team playing away at United.
Yeah.
Now, I'm not going to say. I think it's more important that Jesus plays against United than he does than against Villa. He does not stop. He cannot sustain, and he's not used to it. More to the point, he has not played every game ever at club football, so he's not used to it. So I would be bold, and I know Arteta would be on a hiding to absolutely nothing. I would not start Jesus, and I would start Nketiah, and he was brilliant for the half hour. And I think that would be, we need the squad.
Yes.
And I think that would be such a fillip to Eddie's confidence. It would really it would demonstrate to him how valuable he is within the squad. It's not first 11 anymore. It shouldn't be. It's a squad. It's the first team. It's the first team squad. And I would start with him. I would bring Zinchenko back in if that knock is okay. But again, like Partey, if there's a doubt, it's far more important he starts on Sunday against United. And just on the United one, Paul Tierney is the referee. He is the worst referee of a very bad bunch. I'm terrified. When I read that, saw him today, I thought my heart sank. I thought, well, it is going to be. I mean, I this game. This is the worst. This is my most hated game of the season away at United. Followed.
I'm going.
Oh, right.
I'll be there.
You've got a good record at the moment, so that's good.
I've got a good record. 2-2 away games. Yeah.
My record at Old Trafford is shoddy at best. I wasn't there for the 8-2, but I was there for the 6-1, which wasn't pleasant. Although the atmosphere in the away fans' end was brilliant. Like, it really was. It wasn't worth it. Although we did sign Arteta off the back of it, so and Mertesacker. So, today's success as it is built on a 6-1 defeat at Old Trafford. So thank you, Manchester. Or something like that. So Ramsdale in goal. Ben White, who has been supreme at right back, like getting better every game. Saliba was brilliant again. Gabriel, who does have a rick in him, he does need to iron that out. Arteta said something interesting, that his character has changed this season. That last season that would have played on his mind and he would have had a terrible game subsequent to his mistake. But look what he did. He went up the other end, and you often see it. Tony Adams would do it, famously at Old Trafford. Own goal one end, equaliser the other end, scoring the semi-final winner against Spurs after being pilloried and so on. It's like, I'm just using a centre-back comparison. Gabriel's got to be careful, because Ben White's playing so well. Who's our first choice centre-back pairing?
Well, I mean, at the moment, it is Saliba and Gabriel, isn't it?
Yeah, but another mistake from Gabriel, and it won't be.
No, well, that's the thing, isn't it?
See, so that's good.
That's the benefit of the squad. And
yes.
I can totally understand why, you would think about Nketiah going up top, because at the same time, we've got to enter a period now where there are going to be games on Thursdays and Sundays. And you would assume that Nketiah will take the Thursdays.
Yes.
And Jesus.
Yes, so Jesus will have weeks off.
Yeah.
Subsequent to this week. So maybe if he's not in the red zone, whatever that is, maybe play him. The most important game is the next game, cliche, right?
Yeah.
There is every point going to Old Trafford and winning, even if we lose to Villa or drop points against Villa. However, a draw at Old Trafford might not be too shabby a result.
As long as we beat Villa.
Especially if it comes after 3 points against Villa.
Yeah.
So the middle of the park, I think, Elneny and Xhaka and Ødegaard still. And I think you go with Martinelli and Saka wide. So I just worry about Jesus because he's the X factor.
Yeah.
He's only scored in one game, but he's
arguably been our best player of the season.
Yes, no, absolutely. It's everything else he does, and so. Yeah. What about you? What would you do?
No, I'd be similar. I'd probably play Jesus from the start, but I would have it in my mind that an early substitution would be nice, with Sunday in mind. But I think to drill it home that we are looking to be ruthless.
Yeah.
I'd go with a fairly strong side. You get 5 subs now as well. So that's why I think Arteta is really keen on those fast starts so that he can then use that to the advantage of, guiding the squad through those tougher periods because, the injuries really killed us at the end of last season. Tierney and Partey, all right, was on international duty, and I'm never going to forgive the Scottish FA for playing Tierney in 2 pointless friendlies. But we can only do what we can do, but we've also got to take advantage. Villa are all over the place. Gerrard is probably now the most under pressure manager.
Yeah, I agree.
Because Ten Hag has improved in the last couple of games.
Lampard's still a bit iffy.
Yeah, but I think Lampard's got a couple of excuses that he can hold back because basically they haven't got a striker, and they're sort of doing what they can.
And Villa have 2 dangerous strikers.
And exactly, I think Villa have got more there than they're managing to utilize. I read a thing on Football 365 where it was looking at Villa and Gerrard, and they haven't got any width. They've got rid of players like Ramsey and El Ghazi, and then replaced them with a couple of other players. But they're playing people like Douglas Luiz and McGinn, Coutinho, Buendia's in there as well. It's all very narrow. So teams are essentially exploiting, the width of the pitch and seemingly just pulling them apart.
And we do that very well.
We should.
Saka and Martinelli hug the touchline. You
hope that might be the case, and even if our fullbacks can manage to contribute a little bit as well. But like you say, Ings and Watkins, that's a good Premier League centre forward line.
With Coutinho behind them.
Well, Buendia's been the most
creative
player for them, but Coutinho seems to always be slightly ahead of him in the queue. But Buendia is the one who's actually producing the best. McGinn's form has fallen off a cliff a little bit since he's been given captaincy.
Yeah, and that was odd. Taking it off Tyrone Mings was odd. I don't understand
now
what happened there.
I think Mings is injured, so
that's not why he did it. He did it.
No, but it's all backfired because the idea was to maybe get Mings to focus on his performance first, and now he's injured and he can't even do that. So it's very strange. Yeah, I do wonder about Gerrard.
Yeah. Well, look, we should win. If you're looking at these 5 games, and this is the last banana skin you know, you said no team would get to. So I am setting you up for responsibility if we don't win.
And funnily enough, of all the games,
Yes,
I
I
would have said,
know.
I just said this is the easier
Yeah,
one.
yeah,
Oh
there you go.
no!
See, there's your banana skin.
Oh no!
Well, look, do you know what? It's another test.
It is another test.
It's a different test. This is the test against complacency, which is something we've fallen down at before. We've many times turned out a performance which implied that we just expected to turn up, and we've just listed 4 players for Villa who could and should be damaging lots of defences in the Premier League.
Yeah.
Okay, confidence, morale, momentum is not with them. So, as you say, that plays. And apparently, the Villa fans are very, very anti-Gerrard. In a way, the Everton fans are not necessarily anti-Lampard yet. Maybe because they look at the team and think, yeah, he's getting as good a tune out of the team as he can at the moment, whereas Gerrard definitely is not. I'm hoping that Wednesday night isn't when he does. I'm just looking. Manchester United actually don't play until Thursday.
Yes,
they play away at Leicester. But they got a quite a I don't know a soft 1-0 win at Southampton, but it's another win. It's 2 on the bounce. Confidence we're building. You got to look at him and say he was a bit ruthless. He dropped Maguire, dropped Ronaldo. Every fan up and down the country of opposition teams would be really annoyed about that, because everyone could see how it was the right thing to do before even the game started against Liverpool, dropping Maguire. But it sends a message to the other players as well that, you know, captain or not, if you're not performing, you're out of the team. Yeah. Star centre forward or not, you're out of the team if you're not playing the role I want you to play. They've spent a ridiculous amount of money on this Anthony fella.
It's crazy.
He's in the Dutch league last season, he's got 8 goals and 4 assists. And they've just spent 100 million euros on him. On top of the 57 million quid they spent on Martinez, on top of how much Casemiro, I don't know how much they paid for him. They're paying him like the same as Varane, 350 grand a week.
Yeah.
And he's 31. Oh. And he's got a 3 or 4 year contract. And he's also he's a good block, a shield in front of the back 4, but he hasn't got the pace or the speed. So he will be good in games where they're under pressure, no question. But games they're expected to dominate and so on, I'm not sure where his...
Man United remind me of later career Quentin Tarantino. It's like the more money and the more time and freedom he has, the more bloated and star-studded and, you know, for want of a better word, sort of fat his films become. Whereas when he first started out and he had no money and he had to do things lean, his films were much tighter and, you know, just had a bit more sort of...
what you're saying is we are early Tarantino and United
Tarantino. Yeah. As we spend, you know, probably the 3rd highest amount in the league as well. But again, it's just that joined up thinking. You know, Anthony might be an improvement on 1 or 2 players in their squad, but they've got an abundance of players in that position.
Yeah.
You know, really, I mean, this is why Arteta, I'm glad we're getting onto the transfer market. It obviously closes this week, and we'll talk about a few of our signings. But you keep talking about, is it Fabrizio Romano or someone?
Yeah, Romano, yeah.
Yeah. He was talking about, he was interviewed in a German newspaper talking about Arsenal players that were linked with and this, that and the other. And the message that kept coming back is he's a player that Arsenal want. And he reiterated, Arsenal will not sign a player just to have a body there. They will sign a player that they want, that they know will will add something somewhere. They don't just want a body in there. Whereas Man United just seem to collect these players, give them loads of money, then they can't sell them, and because no one can pay their astronomical wages, and they just end up with these blokes. Think of the forward players. They've got that. They've got Martial. They've got Rashford.
Ronaldo.
They've now bought Anthony. They've got Ronaldo. Sancho. They've got Sancho in there as well. They've got is it Elanga?
Elanga, yeah.
I mean, it's just obscene. And the ones that are playing the best, Elanga, it's the young player who's probably not on that higher wages. It's Rashford, the homegrown talent, who they didn't have to pay a massive transfer fee.
And they're not learning their lesson. They keep repeating it.
There's a good squad in there somewhere, but it's just surrounded by just
noise. Yes,
it's just noise. It's just
watch them turn us over on Sunday now. But I'm glad they've turned the corner though ahead of our game, because it would typically be us that facilitated that. So let them come out and let them come at us. That's fine, because that's what we want. And I'll be really interested on the 1st of October when we play Spurs at the Emirates, what tactic Arteta employs. Spurs are the dour George Graham of this era. They sit back and hit you on the break, which is how they beat us 3-0 at their ground at the end of last season. And again, but we played, I don't know who messaged me, I can't remember, saying, we've started this game well. And I'm like, no, we haven't. We're doing exactly what they want us to do. They've started this game well. We needed to sit back. We didn't need to win. They needed to win.
We were the away team.
Yeah.
You come and tell us we're here to just
back. Yeah. But so I'm hoping Arteta has kind of learned that lesson. Who far be it from me to suggest he needed to learn that lesson. I don't know, something. The tactics were all wrong for that Spurs game. That's it. That's something I won't be swayed on. You could see that, and the result kind of supported that. Now, Spurs go to West Ham on Wednesday, and West Ham. So I was delighted West Ham got their first win last at the weekend. They've also just signed, is it Lucas Paqueta, or I don't know his first name, in time for that game. So I'm hoping, can you think of a better way to endear yourself to the Upton, they're not Upton Park anymore, but the Hammers home crowd, than putting in a match-winning performance against Spurs. West Ham fans, every London club hates Spurs. It's really quite funny, but West Ham fans, having lived and worked there, look, she's nesting. There we go. She's the donut now. Sorry, I'm talking about Stefan's dog. For those who he's just put in an appearance. So on the sofa. Hammers hate Spurs, so I'm hoping that the buzz will be around the what do you call their stadium? The London Stadium.
The London Stadium.
The buzz will be around there beforehand. First win, new signing, hatred of Spurs. Come on, I'm glad the game's.
That's what I hope it is.
Yeah, and I'm glad the game's on at the same time our game's on, although it finishes 15 minutes later. Because I don't want to watch.
That's an interesting one, isn't it? Two London derby, and we're at home to Villa. Like, that's going to make London quite interesting that evening.
Yeah, luckily I'll be driving in and out.
Our coach will be straight in and out.
But now, where I park, the parking restrictions end at 6:30, so I can't leave the car before 6:30, and I'm thinking, but I want to be after Saturday. I want to be in the ground at 6:30. I want to be in the ground an hour before kickoff, because.
Could you make a special exception to not drive and maybe just train it in or something?
I've got two people with me, so I'll probably drive, but. Yeah, I might think about that actually. Although when the game's finished, although it is earlier finished, the train back out might not seem like the best idea. I'll be
You
thinking,
don't know. You also don't know what the atmosphere will be like. It is midweek. Some people coming straight from work. It might not be quite as lively as a Saturday afternoon where people can, have quite a few drinks in the afternoon and then get started. Don't know.
Yeah, no, I know, I get that. I don't know, though. It's I didn't expect the Fulham atmosphere.
No.
That caught me. I was walking outside the ground, walking around. I go in block D, or turnstile D rather, and I could hear them inside. And I thought, oh, it's a bit lively in there.
Mm.
And so they were outside. So we go in block 7 then into where the seats are. But these guys were outside block 6. So I just walked around a little bit, and yeah, it was relentless. It was non-stop right up until, well, I left at 15 minutes before kickoff to get in the seat. I don't know, but midweek games are special, though, aren't they? Under the lights and.
Well, that's it. That's why I'm so looking forward to it, because I rarely get to do them.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah.
Absolutely love them.
So, where were we?
We should probably talk about the transfer window shutting. So, 2 questions really. Who would you like us to sign, and who do you think we will sign?
Right. Okay. I'm just checking my Twitter just to see if there's any.
Well, I'll see if I can find that article which quoted Romano. I think it's Romano, isn't it? Because that was more. It was kind of one of those, following the money kind of situations. Now that United have bought this Anthony guy from Ajax.
Can I just read a quote from Marco van Basten about Anthony? Anthony hasn't proven much yet. Of course, he played a few good games, but his efficiency has not been high in the last 2 years. That's Van Basten who's watched. I've never watched the guy play, so I don't know. And again, Ten Hag just chasing players he knows. I do
feel it's a bit hard. Marco van Basten criticising your efficiency is like going, well, yeah, you're Marco van Basten. It feels a bit harsh, but there we go.
But the other way is he's best placed to.
He knows what he's talking about. Oh, yeah. Absolutely. I
still think that non-Arsenal goals, Van Basten's volley in the Euro final, I'm like, what the hell have I just seen? How has he scored that to even think of volleying from there and to actually execute it the way he did? So there's no. Go on. So have you found something?
Yeah. So Fabrizio Romano quoted in what was the newspaper? Vetfreunde.
Oh.
Which to me sounds like wet friend, but I wouldn't like to say. He says that Real Madrid have basically been offering out Marco Asensio.
Yes.
And the 2 clubs in mind were Arsenal and Man United. Well, Man United have now bought a winger, which leaves us as the primary sort of target club. So what are your thoughts on Asensio?
No,
and I must admit, I read something following it as well, where I can't remember who was saying it, but they were basically saying he was supposed to step up at certain times for whatever reason, particularly I think when Bale went and this, that and the other, and he never really has.
His stats are not good. I did look them up. I don't have them to hand, but I'm thinking no.
I remember one amazing goal. I think it was against Liverpool in the Champions League. And like you say, he's not really been ripping up trees there.
For a team that will dominate 90% of the games they play, no, his stats aren't great. So he's quite young, though. Actually, he's younger than I thought he was.
Yeah.
But no. Okay, so I've always said I want a winger, but a goal threat. So a winger that's got that versatility to play either side or through the middle, and then a central midfielder. Now, because Tielemans has been linked with us for so long, I'm not. When the first time he was listed, he was name checked in reference to us. I was not. I was a bit underwhelmed by it. he played not very well against us when we played Leicester, but that's more of a team issue than an individual performance issue, perhaps. Is he the best we can get, and who does he replace? Is he a Partey replacement, or is he a Xhaka replacement? And do we need to replace Xhaka with somebody who's not that much of an upgrade? Xhaka's playing really well at the moment, and
I'm not convinced by Tielemans.
Yeah,
I don't particularly see what I think other people are seeing. Don't get me wrong, has his moments where he really shines and can do them, but I don't.
But if you've got a Tielemans on the bench, that's a very strong midfield replacement.
He certainly uprates the squad.
Yeah, so
we buy him,
and if we can get him for 20 million, then yeah.
Well, that's the sticking point. There's two Premier League players, him and Neto.
Yeah.
And the problem is Leicester want something like 40 million for Tielemans, even though he's only got 1 year left on his contract. And Arsenal will say, well, we're not paying 40 million because we can just have him next year for free, should it come to that. And Wolves, quite understandably, I think, are looking at more the sort of 50, 60 million for Neto. And I get that because of his age, purely, really, and that potential there. But I don't see us paying that.
No, and I don't think he's worth that either.
No, I'm not convinced.
Again, he's young. He's got a higher ceiling potential. But
also, if we got Gabriel Jesus for 45 million, that would be our negotiating tactic to say,
David Ornstein and Fabrizio Romano have said all along, this is from back in May, that Tielemans will go to deadline day. It'll be a case of who'll blink first.
Yeah.
It's no other club has come in for him. Manchester United, you were saying, and absolutely you'd think that they would come in for him. Chelsea seem to be collecting players.
And I'm not being funny. Actually, if United, like Casemiro's good, don't get me wrong, but for 10 million more, they could have got Tielemans, who's maybe a little bit more creative, but still improves their midfield.
Yeah.
And is younger. And probably wouldn't command as high a wage.
Yeah, wouldn't be paid as high as...
No, not nearly. So, again, it just... The logic of Man United is just paramount. But Tielemans will go to the deadline day. But who do Leicester get in? Because Leicester look like a shambles at the minute.
I don't know what's going on. They've only signed a second choice goalkeeper or transfer window. So I really don't know what's going on there. I don't understand it at all. Fofana's gone. Schmeichel went. Maddison has had bids rejected from Newcastle. I mean, okay, so here I am. I don't know which midfielder I would want in place of Tielemans, and if we can get Tielemans for 20 million, I wouldn't be too disappointed about that.
Yeah.
I think I'll give you a couple of names for the other position that I think we should fill, the right winger, but the goal threat. Zaha.
Okay.
So, am I right in saying he's got a year left on his contract?
I don't know.
So I need to check that. Now, there's Eze. I didn't realise that we rejected Eze as a kid. We got rid of him as a kid, as a schoolboy. And it broke his heart. He dreamed always of playing for Arsenal. So Eze is another player who's got that versatility. He can play more central, but he can play wide as well. And with Eze, you're buying him for the next 10 years. With Zaha, you're buying him for the next 2 years. That's it. Zaha seems to start the season really, really well. A couple of journalists have name-checked him as a plan B if Neto doesn't come off. Neto isn't going to happen.
I don't think Neto
this summer. That's David Ornstein has pretty much tweeted as much. That Wolves don't want to sell. He's got enough years left in his contract, and Arsenal aren't prepared to pay the amount that would encourage Wolves to sell. And the later you leave it, who are they going to get? They've just bought a striker, I believe, but they needed a striker anyway. So that's not getting a striker in to facilitate the sale of Neto. So Zaha is one. But you're talking about Leicester players, I would love Ashley Barnes.
Harvey Barnes.
Harvey Barnes. Every time I say Ashley Barnes.
Yes, you do. Do you know what? I was thinking the same. I think in terms of, well, the problem would Harvey Barnes get ahead of Martinelli and Bukayo Saka? Well, again, it's a bit like the Tielemans situation. It doesn't really matter because it's about uprating the squad. Because even if you buy him and he doesn't walk into the first 11, he still will feature because we're building a squad.
And his mere presence will put the pressure on Martinelli and Saka.
Well, that's the idea, isn't it?
Yeah. And that's the whole point. I don't care.
How would you then feel about Smith Rowe's place? Or
look. Yeah, so Marquinhos should go out on loan if we get
because he's so young.
Yes, and untested, untried, and so on. If we don't sign anyone, then he's going to get a lot more game time. Vieira hasn't made an appearance yet. He's been on the bench a couple of times, but he hasn't kicked a ball yet. I think Europa League for him was always going to be the case because I think that's more his comfort zone at the moment because of his physicality. And I think if he builds, I'm not expecting anything from Vieira this year, but next year I will. So anything we get from Vieira this year will be a bonus. Just because he just looked like a 12-year-old boy when he was unveiled, and I'm thinking that and looking at the Fulham team, like to land the Giants, all right, that doesn't take much for me to think a team is the land of Giants, but up against they brought on, I can't remember, was it Diop? They brought on a player in the second half. I'm like, when they went to a back five, Fulham went to a back five, and they brought this guy on, and he towered over Mitrovic. I'm like, really? Yeah. What? How? He wasn't as solid, perhaps, as Mitrovic, but so we still scored from a corner, so it didn't really work. So I think there's, but I think Arteta will go for Harvey Barnes? No. I think the premium we'd have to pay for his Englishness as well. I think would Harvey Barnes come to Arsenal? I think he'd probably in a heartbeat. Players can see what's going on at the club. I don't think we'll have too much problem in the next 3 or 4 days convincing a player to join us. But Neto is not going to. He knows the club hold the cards there, and because we haven't. This has come out of. We've obviously spoken to the player. We know the player's interested. Otherwise, this wouldn't have come out. But we haven't made any bid for Wolves because Wolves have probably indicated what they would sell for, and we've probably already moved on. Maybe to revisit it in next summer. So midfield, I'm kind of stuck on. We don't have any young player coming through that could get minutes in the Europa League. Lokonga, obviously, apart from that. So I do think we're light on numbers. If you think about it, we've got Partey, Xhaka, Elneny, Lokonga.
That's it.
For 2 positions. I think that's poor. Partey, and look at him, he's injured again. He's quite fragile since he's left Spain.
With the World Cup coming up as well.
Yeah, and 9 games. And again, I know Partey won't play in the Europa League, so that's the 9 games in October. That's not 9 games for our first 11, if you like. I can see Arteta making, who'll start the Zurich away game, which is at 5:30. I'm not going to see it because I'm tutoring. I'm annoyed. So Matt Turner will start in goal. Tierney and Tomiyasu will be the 2 fullbacks. Holding and one of the 3 will play at centre back. Midfield will be Elneny and Lokonga, depending on Elneny's kind of use before that. Smith Rowe will play in Ødegaard's position. Eddie will start in Jesus' position. He might play Saka to get him some confidence, maybe potentially score a goal. I don't know. Who do you play instead of Martinelli and Saka? Marquinhos if he's around. Vieira will start. Emil will play.
And then
Smith Rowe will play wide in place of Martinelli, and Vieira will play instead of Ødegaard. Yeah, and so Saka would be the only player. So that's a pretty strong team, and that's changing every player. That's a complete change from starting 11 against United on Sunday to starting 11 4 days later against Zurich. I still think my fear is we won't sign anyone because there's a proper strategy and approach.
Yeah. Us wanting a player for a certain reason rather than just because we need the numbers. Yeah.
Like we needed a striker in January, and once Vlahovic didn't happen, we weren't getting anybody else. I'm going to be really curious to see how Isak does at Newcastle after we stalked him at Christmas in and around on his little London break. What was I going to say? I was going to say something else.
That might be it, really.
Yeah. So Wednesday,
Villa.
What's your prediction?
1-1.
Oh my God!
As it has been all season. We don't really do draws anymore.
No, we don't, and
we don't do draws.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, I'd rather draw than lose, but a draw would be a bit of a.
Okay, you've got to drop points in one of the games. Which one is it?
One of the next two games?
Yeah, Villa or United.
Oh, Villa, obviously. Well, it has to be because United are a rival, so you're taking points off a rival as well as scoring, and any interruption to the momentum, a drop points against Villa would be eradicated by winning at Old Trafford. That to win away at a Big Six club, irrespective of their form, would be a big deal for us. I know we won at Chelsea last year, but it would be a big deal for Arsenal. And again, I say I'm not looking at Man City and Liverpool results, but I'm a complete fantasist at times. And at half-time in the City Palace game, I was starting to think, hang on a minute, we could be 5 points clear of Man City if they lose this game and we win. And I'm thinking, what are you doing? Man City are going to be 20 points ahead of you by the end of the season. Pipe down. So, so the real rivals, the teams you really want to drop points, and the teams that I won't watch in case I jinx them, jinx the opposition, are Chelsea, Spurs, and United. They're the three really. They're our three rivals for those Champions League places. So City and Liverpool. I mean, Liverpool's an interesting one because I don't know. It depends on what they do in the next 3 days. But City and Liverpool are 1 and 2, and Chelsea are giving me hope that there will be a bit of a basket case this year as well. There doesn't seem to be a strategy there either.
And Conor Gallagher sending off at the weekend. There's a good player in there. He just needs to,
What's his position?
Yeah, I don't know. Bit of an old school midfielder, isn't he?
Yeah, because I if he's going for peanuts,
you think a cheeky little bid?
Yeah. He damaged us last season. That's all I know. But I couldn't tell you what position he's in. No. But if you want a player to unsettle the opposition, he's one of those players, and we've got a few of them now. So, right, okay. So you say 1-1 against Villa. I'm going to go for a repeat of last season's scoreline. I'm going to go 3-1. 3-1. Yeah.
3-1.
I think we start fast.
Okay.
Go into half time with a 2-0 lead, and it'll follow the same pattern. Score a third goal at some point midway through the second half, and then Ramsdale will lose his rag when we concede a late consolation, and I'll be content with that. how arrogant I am now. Right. Anyway, right. Cheers for that.
See you on Wednesday.
See you on Wednesday, indeed. An hour before kickoff.
A chat on Thursday will be good because you've got the looking back at the Villa game, transfer window closing, and looking ahead to United.
I'll try and work out if I can live stream it. So
Yeah,
we need to be on our best behaviour.
good. And I'll have all sorts of screens on and radio in my ear and all that kind of thing going on.
Mind you, the my Wi-Fi needs to be on its best behaviour, but it has held out today. So
They might need relocating the router or the laptop.
No, I've done everything. I've plugged directly into the mains. It's not.
Yeah.
Anyway, right. Okay. Cheers for that. See you on Wednesday, which is only 2 days away. Yes.
Yes.
Ciao.
See you later.